You guys should be able to see who's entering too, so. We will get started in just a couple minutes. Waiting for everyone to log in, so. We'll get started around 2:05. Just waiting for everyone to get in. In the chat, you'll see how to access the credential information guide if you already don't know how to access that. And then you'll see all the Q&As that were asked during the presentation if you want a copy of that too. Thank you for joining us. We'll get started again in a couple minutes. Again, in the chat, we've posted the credential information guide information. We are going to be accessing that and walking you through it with some of the questions. And then the questions have also been posted in the chat. One more minute and we'll get started. Okay, so we're going to get started. So again, the SIG information is in the chat. And so is the questions from this morning, if you want to follow along with us. The presentation materials, Google Drive is here. And again, this webinar is being recorded. Please type questions in the question and answers. We'll be answering all questions from the presentation earlier first, and then getting to the new questions. And then this Q&A session recording will be emailed out to all attendees also. Again, the disclaimers, please check with your monitoring authority regarding their requirements, and CTC has purview over granting, denying all applications submitted for review. So that's just kind of our little disclaimer. Now we're going to get started on the questions. Again, they are in the queue. They are in the chat. Someone's saying they don't see the questions posted. They are in the chat. So you should be able to see them in the chat. They are in Excel. So we are going to get started with the first question. And the first question is there a definition chart of acronyms? Stephanie, do you want to get started with your screen share?
Can you see it? I'm not seeing the option to screen share. Can you see it or not?
We cannot see it.
Bottom versus more. I saw it, now it's gone. Okay, share screen. Oh, sorry guys. Okay, I think I'm good now. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
All right. So this is the credential information guide. I would say become familiar with it. A lot of information is here. There are acronyms here under tools. So from the SIG homepage, go to tools and scroll down and you'll see acronyms and abbreviations. So there are acronyms there. It's not the most up-to-date list of acronyms. I would say check with your local county office of ed and see if they have a list of acronyms to share with you. I know I have one that I share with my districts when I do trainings for new analysts. And I would say, you know, start here in the SIG and see if you can find what you need. If you cannot find your acronym, check with your local county office of ed.
Stephanie Magdaleno.
Yes. So permanent teachers who have been working for more than 17 years, do we need to fingerprint them again?
I'm going to take that meaning, do they need to be fingerprinted again for credentialing? So that's why I'm answering the question. For credentialing, anytime an educator maintains a valid credential, their fingerprint clearance stays current with CTC. However, if they allow their credential, all their credentials to lapse for over 18 months, then they do need to re-fingerprint prior to renewing or applying for a new credential.
Okay. Is the SB 2042 comparable to having an ELA embedded into your multiple subject credential?
Okay, so ELA for English Learner Authorization. So those that are going through the SB 2042 program have coursework embedded into their program to earn that ELA-M for multiple subject, ELA-S for single subject, or ELA-E for education specialist authorization on their document once it is issued. So they have that English Learner Authorization recommended within their multiple subject credential would be ELA-M.
Are preliminary credentials no longer issued? I'll go ahead and answer that one for you guys. And yes, preliminary credentials are still being issued.
Stephanie, I want to jump in with that too. That there are certain document types where there's not a preliminary, such as PPS credentials, people personnel services. But Yeah, CTC hasn't stopped issuing preliminaries. Plenty of other preliminaries out there.
Okay, next question. If a credential is issued after 2007, will the English learner authorization already be built into the credential?
And that would be a no, and here's why. Credentials issued after 2007 can be based on California trained, they can be out of country trained, they can be out of the US trained. So, you know, there's different credentials that you really have to read the authorization statement to know whether or not an English learner is on that document. So I would say just because you have a date, that doesn't mean they have it. Just always refer to the actual document for the authorization.
Can an MM or MS credential teach TK as long as the students fall within the covered disability?
It's an interesting thing about TK that we all see it as something new. The way CTC looked at it right from the get-go is that if a credential authorizes kindergarten, TK is part of kindergarten. And since mild, moderate, and moderate severe credentials authorize service to kindergarten students, they also authorize service to TK students.
Okay, next question. Are charter school administrators and counselors required to hold the proper service credential at this time? Is this requirement on the horizon?
Okay, so I'm thinking in relation to assignment monitoring. For assignment monitoring purposes, for charter schools at this time, they're only reviewing requirements for teaching assignments. The possibility of them reviewing for services assignments such as administrators and counselors, that is a possibility in the future that they will add that on. But at this time, they're only reviewing for teaching assignments. However, if you as your charter require the administrators and counselors to have certification, that will be helpful for when that time comes.
Okay. Next question is, there are 6 types of child development permits. Do all 6 allow the teacher to teach TK post August 1st, 2023?
That would be a no. Your TK positions require a multiple subjects teaching credential. The Department of Ed established requirements for the 24 units of ECE or having, experience in ECE to meet the TK unit requirement, unit experience. So it's 2 separate issues. The position to cover TK will always still require a credential. I mean, they have a new emergency TK permit that's I haven't done one yet, but they are available, and that's going to require specific things. They have to have a permit and then number of units, but always remember that your position requires a credential, not the TK permit. For meeting the TK requirement, I believe it's the teacher permit or higher, because that does require 24 units. So that meets the 24 unit requirement, but they still have to have a multiple subjects teaching credential.
Or you can go site supervisor route with multiple subject and 12 child development units, which are a lot faster.
Right, that is faster. And actually the school age emphasis, they can have 6 EC units with the multiple subjects teaching credential, and the state recognizes any level student teaching as their supervised field experience. So we have been starting to do a lot of site supervisor with school age emphasis applications for people who have the multiple subjects teaching credential, because it is the quickest way to get them compliant.
You
So
can
there will
also
be a webinar on the 26th with child development permits and TK. So if you're interested in more information on those 2, then I would sign up for the 4/26 webinar. Next question, can you use the LAO for a CTE teacher to teach a study hall class?
Oh, I really didn't want to get this one. If anyone else wants to chime in, please do. My
can chime in.
response will be to check with your monitoring authority. Does
Yeah,
anyone else?
for those local assignment options, definitely look at the requirement of the local assignment option. So study hall class, typically we find that falling under Title V 800005B. Now, that requires a certification based on a program bachelor's degree, student teaching, and those CTE credentials, they're not requiring those as part of the program. So if they hold a different credential, such as a multiple subject, single subject, or ed specialist along with that CTE credential, then they meet the requirement of the local assignment option through holding that teaching credential, that English, or sorry, the multiple, single, or special ed.
Stephanie Tomasi, are you able to go to the local assignment option resource?
I am looking at it now. I have my book right open for that 80005B.
Can you show it on the SIG though?
Oh, yes, I can. Hey, give me a second. Let's do it slowly. Okay, this is the SIG. Let's go home because it's an assignment. No, that's CTC. Hang on, I'll get there. Feature topics, resources, assignment resources. Local assignment options are here somewhere.
Towards the bottom is
Okay, here we go. Common local assignment options. Okay, so we're talking about that A0005B. Go to it. Here it is. Is this it?
Yes.
Not exactly the one I wanted. That's legal citation.
So yeah, a CTE credential holder cannot be authorized under Title V because they don't have a credential based on BA in student teaching. There may be another local assignment option that they could possibly use, but not Title V.
But there is a caveat that if no curriculum instruction assignments, exams, or credits are associated, then they can. So it just
There's a
depends. Just
Different
depends on that.
CalPATS code, yes. That's
Right. Right. Study Hall 9217 is homeroom study hall with an asterisk that says if no curriculum, then the CTE can do it.
Next question. In California, under what conditions can a multiple subject credentialed teacher teach a core subject that generally requires a single subject credential?
Amanda, I think, Schofner, I think you're up.
Okay, so let's see, in California, a multiple subject credentialed teacher teaching core subjects, so course settings or core subjects, because there's two different terminologies here. Core subject being English, math, science, social studies, or core setting being the local assignment option under 44258.1. Let's see. In grades 5 through 8, they can do the course setting assignment to teach single subject areas as long as they hold the self-contained assignment and they are doing 2 or more subjects to the same group of students.
I would say, can you see my, I'm screen sharing. When you're in SIG, if you just type in middle school core, you will find everything you ever wanted to know about core assignments, the definition of what they are, the intent. You'll find examples of core, but there's a lot of information just that you can find in SIG. So core assignments, intent of core, I mean, it goes on and on. So it's kind of a short little question, but there's a lot of information here. Just knowing how to find it is going to really be helpful for you.
Yeah, and you always want to be careful with the term core because it has different meanings in different situations. We're all used to speaking about core academic subjects, English, math, science. But there's this other thing, middle school core, which is an authorization under the multiple subject credential in grades 5 through 8. So it's really important to be clear about what you're asking in terms of talking about core. Anytime you use the word core, make sure you're really clear on what you're talking about.
Excellent point. When I started monitoring charter schools, they were like, well, they are teaching a core subject, but that is different. Core subjects and core assignments completely different. So good point, Tom. Let's be sure we know what we're referring to and the intent of core. If it's a core setting, the true definition of that is for middle school assignments.
Okay, next question. Can a substitute who is serving long-term, say 30 days consecutive, be teacher of record for that time period if they have a 30-day sub permit, a single subject, a multiple subject, and admin credential?
Well, teacher of record, they have to have a credential to cover that subject for that assignment. So a sub, they have 30-day sub permit, 30 days, and they go to a different assignment and not more than 30 days in that school year in that classroom. If they have, multiple subjects credential and they're subbing in a multiple subject self-contained setting, I mean, they have the credential to be teacher of record, but you really want to be careful as an LEA who you're reporting in CalPADS as the teacher of record. That person being reported as the actual teacher of record must have a credential that is authorizing that assignment. Because that, if you're starting to put subs in and they don't have a credential that matches, you're going to start getting your exceptions. So be very careful when you're staffing people as substitute teachers. But I don't know, did I answer the question, or is there somebody else want to add more to that?
No, I think you're good.
Yeah, I think, by definition, someone on a substitute permit is substituting for the teacher of record. So if you call them the teacher of record, that creates this conflict because they're by definition substituting for someone else.
Okay. Next question. Who can get a CLAP?
I'll jump in on that one. To qualify for a CLAP, the educator needs to hold a special education teaching credential, preliminary or clear or life. That includes say a clinical rehabilitative services credential, language, speech, and hearing, if it has a special class authorization, but it has to be a special education teaching credential. For example, someone with only a multiple subject would not qualify for a CLAP.
There's also a webinar on April 19th, if you guys would like to sign up for that on limited assignments.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, next question. Is language arts considered reading?
Okay, so when it comes to your assignments, it's all about the course content, not the title that's being used. So if you say language arts, but the course content is all reading, well, how is that being reported in CalPADS? That's your main question. So is it being reported as a language arts because the curriculum specialist has determined that the course content is language arts, or is the course content reading and it's reported as reading? So they can be different.
Next one, could a multiple subject teacher teach a departmentalized language arts class?
That would kind of goes with what Amanda was saying. Language arts, that's English. In California, we don't have an English language arts credential. We have an English credential. So if the departmentalized class is having to do with English and they're getting English, credits, English curriculum, then they need an English authorization. So that would be, there are options, GLAP, for them on a GLAP if they have a multiple subjects credential, but by itself, the multiple subjects credential does not do a departmentalized English language arts or anything unless they have authorization.
Okay, next one. What is a GLAP or CLAP? Is that different from a PIP or a STIP?
Yeah. So those are all different documents. GLAP is the acronym for a General Education Limited Assignment Permit, which allows a fully credentialed multiple subject or single subject credential holder to apply for this emergency permit for a subject outside of their credential authorization. For example, I hold a multiple subject credential. The school district needs me to teach math. I can apply through them for a general education limited assignment permit in math. Same thing with the CLAP. Just a heads up, the acronyms for GLAP, GELAP, for CLAP, SELAP. CLAP, Special Education Limited Assignment Permit. Same thing, you have a fully credentialed special ed teacher You need them to teach outside of their subject. So they have an education specialist, moderate severe. You need them to teach special ed preschool class. So you can have them apply for a special education limited assignment permit in early childhood special ed. These are different from short-term staff permit, STIP, or provisional intern permit, PIP, because the GLAP and CLAP are for fully credentialed teachers, whereas the STIP and PIP, those individuals don't hold a full credential. And so it's a document that authorizes them to teach without holding another full credential. And I'll jump in on the next one too, since it's about STIPs and PIPs, short-term staff permit and provisional intern permit. You can imagine a scenario where someone has both at the same time, I guess. I think generally you're not going to want to do that. It's probably not going to be the best decision, but for example, you have a split assignment. In the morning, the person teaches gen ed math, and in the afternoon, they teach special day class, moderate severe. Yeah, I guess they could have both. But if you're doing that, there's probably a better way to do what you're trying to do.
Okay, next question is, since Ed Code does not clearly specify what is the commission's definition of the same group of students, in other words, if the class roster is off by 4 students, is that no longer considered the same group of students? And would be check with your monitoring authority on what they allow and don't allow. Do you guys have a different opinion?
I would just say I have it up on the screen right now, and it does say students population remains substantially the same. So, check with your monitoring authority on that.
Yes, I would say the same. Check with the monitoring authority to see what their understanding of substantially the same is, and then go from there on.
Yeah, I would say that's something that should be apparent when you're looking at the class roster. If you look at it and it seems like it's the same group, yeah. If you look at it and you see different names on the 2 sections, then it's probably not.
All right. Next question is intro to science and foundational level science the same credential?
Oh, I can take that one. So for intro to science, that's a course content. And then the foundational level science, that is a authorization. So those are the intro to science, that's course content, what is being taught, and then the authorization foundational level science, that is authorizing certain types of science classrooms.
Okay, next question. What is the difference between foundation level math and science versus a specific subject? My understanding is that foundation level can teach middle school science and math, whereas high school needs to have a specific authorization based on the class, i.e. chemistry. Is this correct?
It's the core, it's the grade level. You do utilize your the charts here in the assignment section of SIG. There's a whole chart here on, if you go to, I think it's in departmentalized classrooms, there's a science authorization chart. So do use your chart. It'll tell you the areas, the types of science credentials, what they authorize, and grades. So these are great resources to know what type of credential they need, which specific science authorization they need.
All right, next question. Can CLAD teach an English class in Spanish for dual language? If not, what do they need to do to do this? If teacher does not pass CSETs, can they request a permit?
The CLAD does not authorize bilingual instruction. The EL authorizations, ELA1, ELAM, etc., none of those authorize bilingual instruction. That requires either a bilingual authorization in the target language. So in this case, a bilingual authorization in Spanish, the authorization code BASP, or a BCLAD, BCLAD certificate, BCLAD emphasis in Spanish. There is an emergency permit available, an emergency BCLAD permit. The heads up is that applying for an emergency CLAD permit, the person just needs to have essentially a teaching credential, a full teaching credential. For an emergency BCLAD, there's an additional language proficiency requirement. So I would encourage anyone who's applying for an emergency BCLAD to review the leaflet on that and just make sure that the applicant meets one of the options for their language proficiency. And then just a reminder that if your teacher that you want for bilingual instruction doesn't meet the requirements for an emergency BCLAD, you might consider a variable term waiver, even though those are a lot of work.
All right, next question. Can a special ed teacher teach a departmentalized class? Example, teach ELA to 8th grade for 1 or 2 periods.
Okay, so I'm going to look at ELA being English Language Arts. So if the English Language Arts course content is for a special education setting, then the focus of the certification is on the student disabilities, not the course content. So yes, they could teach English Language Arts to special ed students as long as the students' disabilities are authorized by the certification that special education teacher held. Now, if you're thinking of teaching English Language Arts to 8th grade general education, they would need that single subject English credential in order to teach general education. You cannot use a special ed credential to teach a general education classroom.
Next question. Can you go over the differences between the integrated and designated and departmentalized EL teaching methods as they relate to the EL authorizations? CalSAS uses slightly different labeling than the EL charts have, and it is confusing.
Okay, I'm going to take this one because I've got this chart that I really, really love, and I want you to all to be able to find it, because this chart has definitions at the bottom in case you ever forget what they are. So when you're in SIG, in the search box, if you type in English Learner Exceptions, you're going to get a link. Let me make sure I can find it. Go there. English Learner Exceptions. Okay, this chart is fantastic because these at the top are the terms that CalSAS uses, right? They use terms like integrated ELD, designated and integrated, departmentalized, bilingual instruction, and our head starts going like this. At the bottom of this chart are all the definitions, okay? So English language ELD is instructions for English language development. Integrated is when you're using your curriculum and you're integrating the English learner instruction in what you're already teaching. It's integrated as part of what you're teaching. Designated is when you're taking a part of the day out of your classroom to teach English learner instruction as a designated period time in your assignment in your classroom. Then the departmentalized is a separate standalone classroom. Okay, so that is the difference between integrated, designated, departmentalized, and bilingual is when you're speaking in a language but teaching your curriculum. So you've got a BCLAD Spanish, but I'm going to teach art, and I'm going to speak in Spanish to my students. I'm going to speak in Spanish, but I'm teaching them art. So you have a BCLAD endorsement on top of your credential for the subject that you're teaching. And then this chart, it tells, if you go, just look at it at the top. There was another question later on in the Q&As, and I'm going to cover it now because it was talking about ELAM, ELAS, ELAE, and why don't we just make everybody just get the ELA1 and be done with it? And the reason is this: not every teacher wants to teach a standalone departmentalized ELD, or they may never teach a standalone departmentalized ELD. So there isn't any reason for them to go and get that additional ELA 1 authorization because they're already authorized. You see the X's there? They're already authorized to do integrated, designated, and integrated with their ELAM, ELAS, ELE. I think a lot of exceptions that came out in CASAS were because they were coded incorrectly. They might have been coded as, oh, well, they're doing departmentalized ELD, and they were not. Okay, so be careful with the coding of your EL in classrooms and instruction in CalPads so that they don't come up as exceptions. So this is a great chart. I love it to death because it's got all the different types of EL authorizations. CLAD got the X's across the board. ELA 1 is the same across the board, except not bilingual. So use your resources and it's going to really help you. Anybody else?
You covered it.
Yeah,
All
that
right,
sounds
next,
great.
go ahead. Explain
sounds
again.
Sorry.
Did you say, sorry, Tom, did you have more to add?
No.
Okay, sorry. Okay, next question. Explain again what current special ed credential with mild, moderate, and moderate severe need to do if they need to renew on 1/1/25. Does this mean they need to take classes to get the new credential because their current credential will not be valid?
No, and I'm glad that came up. Whenever the credential structures change, it tends to create a bit of confusion. So recently, CTC changed the structure of the special education teaching credentials. For example, moderate severe disabilities is now extensive support needs. And this is across the board. CTC has always, if someone's fully credentialed for something, CTC never takes stuff away. They don't add new requirements to someone who has a full credential. So someone who has a moderate severe, they can renew that just like they could have 5 years ago or 10 years ago. It's the exact same. But the new credential structure has more flexibility in certain ways. So there's the option for them to do additional training or verifications and apply for a bridge document that expands the authorization on their credential. They might want to do that. Their employer might want them to do that. The employer might need them to do that to cover a certain assignment, but they don't have to do that for their credential. They can just renew the credential just like before.
Next question. Need to understand what the bridge document is and how do teachers get one?
Okay, so the bridge document is for those that hold the older mild, moderate, severe authorizations or are currently obtaining those authorizations. It's for those when they get out of their program and they have been issued that, let's say, mild, moderate, or moderate severe authorization, they can use a bridge document that will allow them to obtain the authorizations that are not on their current credential, but are offered on the newer mild, moderate support needs and extensive support needs. Now, a coded correspondence on this is 22-03 that goes over the information regarding the bridge documents. And another good coded correspondence is the 22-06 that goes over the expanded education specialist instruction credential authorization assignments. And I'm going to share my screen real quick, just to show you that on this 2206, it gives you a good chart showing the differences between the mild and moderate authorization, moderate severe, versus the newer certifications that are coming out, mild moderate support needs and extensive support needs. So the mild moderate, it did not authorize the multiple disabilities, autism, and the newer mild and moderate support needs. It includes those authorizations. So the bridge document would have mild for the multiple disabilities and autism, those that the mild moderate does not authorize, it would let them provide those services.
And another good resource is CIA 2207, and you can find both coded correspondence and credential information alerts on the SIG where Amanda was just at. Here's another kind of related question to the bridge. It says, I have heard that in order for a SPED teacher to apply for the bridge, they need to have an autism authorization on their credential. Which authorization code would that be?
I would say read the document, read your authorization statement on the document to see if they have autism. And that's the only way you're going to know is to read that statement. But the bridge, going back to that, it's just an option. It's not, there you still have the CLAP, special ed limited assignment permit to give these people coverage. Not all county offices offer the bridge program, and a lot of districts haven't gotten up to speed yet to have a bridge program. So know that you still have the CLAP to fall back on to cover people who may be teaching out of their assigned disability areas.
Next question is, if we can have more detailed slides for ed specialists. We're going to go ahead and skip that one and move on to the next one.
Okay, next one with the new credential for special ed, are current CLEAR teachers with a mild, moderate, or moderate severe not going to be qualified to teach unless they meet the needs of autism, orthopedic impairment, and multiple disabilities added authorizations. We've already talked that, those are pretty much grandfathered in. They retain their authorizations. They're able to bridge if they want to, but this is not something that is mandatory.
Yeah, and when providing those services, it all boils down to, does the certification that they hold authorize the service being provided?
Next question is a credential needed to provide intervention support during the school day?
I always ask my district, what do you mean? give me a job description. What intervention support? What are they doing? And then go from there. Read the job description to know, are you talking about resource specialist where they're doing the resource piece? Many credentials special ed have resource built in. So you really need to know, what are we talking about?
Yeah, if they were doing like if they were doing math intervention, obviously they would need a math credential. So it all depends on what kind of intervention they're doing.
Exactly. So, we need to know what we're talking about.
Next question, special instruction slide on page 15. Is that more of a management employee, not necessarily and teacher for record staff member? Do you remember what that was, Amanda? If not, we'll skip over.
I looked it up because I didn't know what it was. I've been doing credentials a long time. I've never done an application for this, but I had to read it to know what it was. So that's like an add-on. They already have a credential of some kind, and then they want to add so they can be a specialist. So that's what it is. And the leaflet to know all about that, CL529.
All right. Next question is, with a 30-day sub permit, you can only teach 20 days in a special ed class?
Okay, we have quite a few sub permit questions at this time. So Assembly Bill 181 was passed, and it authorizes 60 days substitute teaching in a general education, special education, and a CTE assignment. But that is a flexibility that is temporary. And at this time, that expires on July 1st, 2023. So once the flexibility is gone, we are going to go back to the sub permit is going to authorize general education 30 days per assignment per teacher of record, and special ed 20 days. So that is the authorization of those documents. But again, at this time, Assembly Bill 181 has that flexibility until July 1st, 2023.
So that kind of answers, is the sub permit still valid for 60 days? Yeah, July 1st, 2023. Okay, the next one is talking about the temporary flexibility for CVEST.
Yeah,
I can do that one. That's until July 1st, 2024. Anybody who has a bachelor's degree and does their fingerprinting can get a sub permit without basic skills, and they never have to pass basic skills even to renew that sub permit. Sub permit will be issued with the code 1397 on it, which means it was issued without the basic skills have been met. So you can identify it by seeing that 1397 on it. So if that person only wants to sub forever and keep renewing, they can do that. If they go into a teaching program, that's completely different. They will need to have basic skills met. And that is up until July 1st, 2024.
Okay, the next one is about a TIPSL. Can you use a TIPSL for paid administrative leave? And yes, you can.
Next one is, oh, nope, we already answered that one. The 60-day flexibility ends on 7/1/2023.
The next one, what substitute permit is used for a CTA substitute, CTE substitute, since they do not have a BA?
That is called a designated subject CTE 30-day sub permit. Let's DL 786.
Next question is, if a sub is covering,
Stephanie, let me just say though too, a regular substitute permit holder can substitute in CTE classes. But
Right.
there's that additional option where if someone doesn't meet requirements for a regular sub permit, there's a special
Right,
CTE
because the
sub permit.
question says because they don't have the BA. And we know that CTE credentials, you can get a CTE based on a high school diploma and industry sector experience. You don't need a bachelor's degree. So they do have the sub permit that is available for CTE for people without BAs, and that is CL 786.
next question is, if a sub is covering a teacher who is out on leave, would the sub's 30-day sub permit be enough? Or do they need the emergency career substitute teaching permit?
So I don't mean this to sound sarcastic, but it's going to depend on the length of the leave.
TIPSL is always a good option.
Yeah, TIPSL.
And remember that they can't just request a career sub permit. They have to meet requirements for a career sub permit. They have to have 3 years of consecutive subbing with that district in order to even get a career sub permit. So you want to be mindful of that when you're thinking about, oh, career sub permit, because they can be in a classroom up to 60 days. Yes, but do they have that 3 years of consecutive sub experience with that district?
And a clarifying point is that the career sub is not the same as a career technical education.
Good point.
Yes, I always pull up the wrong leaflet and look at it and go, wait, that's not it.
So the next question talks about a 30-day sub permit, but I think they're talking about a prospective sub permit. Can someone sub for more than 90 days for different positions at a school site?
For prospective sub, no, it's 90 days. That's it, because the focus is for them to finish their bachelor's degree. So somebody needs to be keeping track of the number of days that prospective sub is subbing.
One of the examples that I have, because there are districts that share substitute teachers. So if someone has that prospective sub permit, they are limited to 90 days overall. So if they go and substitute teach for 2 assignments, 60 days at one district, if they go to another district, they only have 30 days left.
Right, and the question came up at one of the CTC office hours. How does anybody keep track? And the thought was, oh, the county office can keep track, but absolutely not. There's no way the county office can keep track. We don't know where these people are subbing. It really is an honor system, between the sub and the people employing them. There really is no way to actually track what they're doing. But again, the focus is that they're earning their bachelor's degree. They should be focusing on that. And of course, get their sub experience along the way, but 90 days is 90 days, and that's it.
Next question is, for variable term waivers, is there a limit to the number of times the same teacher can apply for a waiver to teach outside of their credential?
Outside of their
Waivers.
credential, then we're talking about GLAPs and CLAPs. The waiver is if they don't have requirements for STIP or PIP to enter into a teaching program. So it just depends on, what you're talking about outside the credential area. I mean, subsequent waivers are not unheard of, but they're very, I would say always email the waiver unit to find out if somebody's eligible for a subsequent waiver and what the conditions might be for a subsequent waiver.
Yeah, I would say waivers by definition um, don't have hard and fast guidelines. In other words, it's really going to depend application by application. You wouldn't be able to say, oh no, this person can only have X number of waivers. Typically, you can't say that because it depends on the situation and the documentation, what's happened, what progress have they made, what attempts have they made at remediation. So it's not one you can really answer like directly, but just know there's an expectation that the person is progressing and moving towards meeting requirements. So they can't go on indefinitely.
Yeah, CTC is looking for that progress piece when they're looking at the waivers. So at some point, they will meet the requirements for a STIP or a PIP. So there is a limitation in regards to once you meet that requirement for STIP or PIP, they will no longer issue a waiver.
The next one's regarding waivers too. So what is considered a variable waiver? We have a credentialed employee whom is obtaining their PPS credential, but will not have it until 2024. What waiver would we file for them to fill this position that requires this credential?
You know, the variable term waiver is a specific type of credential document, and it's different than really everything else. Has a different application form. The applications all go hard copy to CTC, processed by a specific unit. So when we talk about waivers, sometimes there's a thought that, oh, we're just waiving that. But in this case, the variable term waiver that's being talked about for this PPS assignment, this is a credential document that's applied for through CTC. Check the waiver handbook on the credential information guide.
And I'm going to show how to get to that real quick. So if you go into the SIG under your resources, manuals and handbooks, there's your waiver handbook, and it comes through as a PDF. Mine goes automatically to the program waiver page. But if we scroll down to page 35, it'll show you the list of most often education codes or Title V's that are waived. So professional prep program for a PPS services credential, on that WV1 application form, you would be using Ed Code 44266.
All right, so next question, it's about slide 23. Next question is, an emergency perspective sub-permit, can you renew it, or does the holder need to apply for a regular sub-permit once it expires? You are allowed to renew it once, as long as you meet the renewal requirements. And the next question is, can the holder of the early special education credential teach TK mild to moderate or mild or moderate to severe?
We've already answered
Wait.
that. So
Answered that
Tom
one.
answered that earlier. And that is, yes, they're authorized for kindergarten, so they're authorized for TK. Next question, can a multiple subject credential teacher teach a departmentalized class that is coded as junior high? For example, junior high math 7 departmentalized, or junior high ELA 7 departmentalized, or does it need to be a single subject credential?
I would say if it's not a core assignment, so 2 or more subjects to the same group of students, then they need a single subject credentials. They're departmentalized classes. You can get a GLAT and request 2 subjects on a GLAT. It's possible for somebody with a multiple subjects credential.
And then if it is a core setting assignment, if your hanging subjects or any subject goes over 50%, you will have to have a single subject authorization in that subject.
Yeah, there's this myth out there that seems to pop up periodically, and a lot of times from principals, where they say, this is an elementary school, we're going to have this person with a multiple subject teach all PE, teach all the PE or all the math. And whether it's elementary or high school, if they're teaching in a departmentalized assignment like elementary PE, they need departmentalized coverage. So ideally, they would have a single subject PE credential for that assignment, but they would need coverage for a departmentalized assignment, whether it's elementary, middle, or high school.
And the supplementary authorizations are common for your multiple subjects credential holders. This requires units, but those are, we see those a lot.
Next question is, what type of credential would someone need if we wanted to bring them under Prop 28 funding to teach STEAM to various students and various grade levels? Same question if we wanted them to teach art to various students and grades, but not required to do any grading.
There's a handy dandy resource on the SIG that has really good information on STEAM. That is CalPADS code 9222, and it tells you what credential can be used for which subcategory. Are one of you able to bring that up real quick? If not. And same with art, I would refer to this resource for a lot of things because it has great information on the SIG. All the CalPADS codes and what credentials can teach them. So for STEAM, it's definitely one of the best resources.
I just pulled it up. If you just type STEAM in the search box, you can get a link to this, all of these industry sectors. No, this isn't the one I wanted. Yes.
If you go to CalFAS.
Here, assignment monitoring, STEAM classes.
There
Here
you
we
go.
are. So yeah, click around and assignment monitoring for general and STEM courses, and just scroll down. It'll tell you content and what credentials cover that content. So yeah, I would say use your resources.
There's one that's talking about the 30-day sub permit flexibility. When is that going to end and how many times can they renew? I know we went over this. They can continuously renew without having the BSR, and it ends in 2024, July.
Next question is, can an employer submit a paper application to renew someone's 30-day sub permit since we do not have the ability to apply for renewal online? Will there be an option added for employers to renew the sub permit online? Yes, you can submit a 30-day sub permit renewal on application, but the employer or the employee can also renew online as well.
Next one.
The employee should be renewing online because they have to
Yeah.
answer all the professional fitness questions, and then they pay with their handy dandy credit card, not yours. So renewals for sub permits and clear credentials are always by the actual credential or permit holder.
And next one, can basic skills courses be completed after they apply, for example, an out-of-country single subject credential where the CTC determines basic skills are needed within the first year?
Always, you have to be mindful that, you look at the issuance date of the document. If they aren't showing the employer basic skills within that first year, you're looking at a document that's not any good. It's not valid. They can always meet basic skills after the year, and then the document becomes valid. So just be mindful of the issuance date and when that BSR was due, and then keep track of when they met basic skills, and then can employ them again.
Next question says, previously it was said only recommending agencies could file for a mixture of exams and basic skills. Are districts now allowed to file?
I think yes. I've been doing a lot of applications with the BSR 41 BSR and mixing exams and coursework. Anybody else?
Yeah.
The reason it was like that originally was because of the way the legislation was written, where it had to be an agency with an approved credential programs, where even CTC wasn't able to evaluate for that. And I think the specific change was that now, since CTC can evaluate for combined coursework and exams, that yeah, you don't need to be you don't need to have a accredited credential program to submit those applications.
So since we're on limited time, I'm going to kind of fly through some of these. So we're talking about dual language again, and why doesn't everyone earn the ELA one? And Stephanie kind of went over that as to not everyone wants to be teaching departmentalized ELD. Someone is asking if a teacher with a single subject math with an ELA 1 can teach designated ELD or departmentalized, and yes, they can with the ELA 1. Again, they're asking about explain the difference between a designated ELD and an integrated ELD. And I think the chart that Stephanie showed you is a good place for you to use that resource and print it. And again, with the ELAM, ELAS, and ELE, it's all covered in there. So. Next one would be, can you please go over designated and integrated and especially, oh, well, that's again for CalPADS
yeah.
purposes. So yeah, definitely use that resource for CalPADS purposes. The next one is how are misassignment sanctions handed out? Are teachers, principals, and districts subjects to sanctions? Who makes these determinations and when are they typically assessed? What type of sanctions are there?
Financial. It's all at the CDE and CTE discretion. Some are handed down financial sanctions, and some people go by years and years misassigned without any. So it's not really for us to say. It all falls down to what the Department of Ed and CTC are planning to do.
And if you're looking at the Ed code, it would be 44258.9J. And that's where it provides the commission may promulgate regulations that define standards of local education agency, including a charter school that consistently misassigns employees and what sanctions, if any, to impose. So that, yeah, it's up to CTC to make those enforcements.
Next question is if there's going to be a training or webinar regarding CalSAS, and the answer is no, but you can go to the SIG and click on CalSAS, and there is an amazing training modules there if you guys want to go on there.
And you should be going on there. The commission sent out an email reminding everybody, let's get ready. We need to be watching that.
There's all kinds of training modules on there, and I would encourage you to watch all of the training modules because they will go into EL, they will go into all kinds of things. So their training modules are awesome. So next question is about charter schools for AB 1505 teachers. If they have entered a credential program since the 1920 school year and teaching the same course assignment, are they still covered under 1505?
But they will be misassignments.
They can continue utilizing that determination of 2019-20 charter up until 2025. And then, but just like vacancies, CTC looks at those as misassignments.
And then they're asking if they switch to a different subject, if that applies, and that's no. If they switch subjects, you're subject to, you need to have the correct credential or a local assignment option.
They're asking if they've entered a credential program since the 1920 school year and teaching the same course and assignment, are they still covered under 1505? Okay. Next question is, if none of our districts or county office have a librarian, who would take the hit on the misassignment in CalSAS, assuming the county office? Question mark.
Going to be the district that doesn't have a librarian that's going to take the hit, not the county office.
They might raise a fuss with their county office, but ultimately the misassignment is the district's.
And the Ed code for librarian is Ed code 44868.
And someone's asking, did CalSAS open on 4/1/23? No, CalSAS has not opened yet for this fiscal year, for the 22-23 fiscal year.
CTC has hinted that it will open sooner than the past couple of years, but they haven't given a date yet.
So we're just going to go for a couple more minutes here since we started a little bit late. And again, this session is being recorded too. So
someone wants to know, I get credential renewal emails from CTC for formal employees, some who have terminated years ago. How do I change this? Does the educator themselves have to remove the district or county from their credential? Yeah, they would just have to remove you from their educator profile.
yeah, they should use their own email, hopefully not yours, so you're not getting all of their renewal emails. How long does a credential renewal extension for an intern ed specialist usually take? I have a teacher whose renewal shows as pending evaluation on CTC.
I think those are paper, so those can take up to 50 days, but you can request an expedite, send in 41-expedite, ask the state to pull it out of line and process it sooner rather than later.
Where do you locate the Flash 201 and 218?
Okay, so Flash 201. Share.
I went and typed them in right on the CDE website and they come boom right up. I know Amanda put them in her slides, but they are right there on the CDE website.
So Flash 201. And then CalPADS Flash 201. So I just go and I put them in the search and on CDE's website.
The next one is, how does someone get a professional growth advisor? So this would be, I'm assuming they're talking about child development permits. So there is a resource for that. Sorry.
It's also in the SIG.
Yeah, and so let me share here. Oh, I
Yeah.
clicked out of my resource.
The child development, the professional growth manual for child development permits talks about the requirements for a professional growth advisor. So the individual should review that. If they still can't find their own, they may want to talk to their employer, see if they can rustle someone up. But if not, the Child Development Training Consortium, which I believe the link to their website was put out here earlier, they also offer a resource of helping to connect individuals with professional growth advisors if they're in that situation. I would say typically it'll probably be kind of rare that someone doesn't really have access to an advisor. But again, they should review the qualifications for advisors because it could be someone with the exact same permit.
Yeah, so on the manual, you'll have advisors who live in California and those who don't live in California. So this is a good thing to follow. Always look at that manual. I'm going to kind of skim over these last couple questions real quick. It's talking about a training on transcripts. Obviously, that's coming up next week. Again, about mild, moderate, mild, severe. We've talked about that. Someone's asking about the org charts too that Amanda presented, and you can again go to the CDE website and the CTC website and type in org chart. Boom, they're going to pop right up. So substitute teacher flexibilities, we've discussed that. Someone's asking about it. Does a certificate of clearance expire? Yes,
Yes.
every 5 years. They're just like a clear document. Does an adult ed credential have to be held to teach adult ed, or can any credential teacher do that?
Many
There's
of the credentials
flexibility.
include- Oh, go ahead.
44865, code 44865 allows regular fully credentialed teachers to be broadly assigned to teach in adult ed settings.
And then,
So definitely look at that, a local assignment option chart.
yeah, and single subject, multiple subject ed specialists, they all include an adult authorization.
So I'm trying to see what else real quick they're talking about before we end this. There is a chart on fulfilling subject matter by competence. So that is also on the SIG. So that is a really handy dandy chart. So definitely take advantage of that. And then someone's talking about school nurses. Can school nurses provide services to students through Ed Code for their preliminary if their preliminary credential expires? And that's a no. They can possibly apply for an extension or appeal. Someone wants a misassignment defined versus a determination in CalSAS.
Okay, so exceptions in CalSAS are the questions. Determinations are I believe it's 11 different determinations. So you're saying, oh, this is a course setting assignment. Oh, this is alternative placement. This is a vacancy, and this is a misassignment. So the determinations is clarifying and confirming the status of that exception. A misassignment is when they do not hold the appropriate authorization for the instruction or services they're providing.
Okay, and so we tried to get to most of the questions and we did get to most of them. There was a couple that got typed on the Q&A now. Unfortunately, we are out of time. This will be recorded and will be sent out. I want to thank Amanda, Stephanie Tomasi, Tom, and Stephanie Magdaleno for your support. Amanda, thank you for presenting and everyone for participating in the Q&A. The next session will be on the 12th. Again, from 9 to 11 with Q&A from 2 to 3. And Tom himself will be, along with Andy, presenting on basic skills and transcript evaluation. So if you'd like to sign up for that one, that will be next week. So without further ado, thank you, everyone, unless anybody else has anything they want to add. So
The 12th is going to be great stuff. I encourage you to attend. And I want to say, Amy, thank you for running the show here.
You're welcome.
You always do great.
Thank you.
everybody's doing a great job. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. See you next week. Bye-bye.